Welcome, everybody. We want to talk to you about Fridays, in particular, news released on Fridays. Fridays traditionally have been a time when companies dump news, usually after the close of the bell, and they hope companies or whatever the news is, the idea is you hope it will sort of get no attention, very little attention over the weekend. Monday, everyone comes back to work, and it's forgotten, but no longer.
Yeah, Mark, it was interesting. I mean, the election is what's got us talking about this. The last two Fridays, there have been some fairly notable news events in the election. And while that's possible that the election, which is unusual in so many ways, is maybe not applicable to the rest of the news, it intersects with our data set in a really interesting way that I wanted to share with you here. So you've seen this graph before. This is the graph showing what is being published on Social Flow on a daily basis. We do almost 75,000 stories a day through our platform from our media clients. And so you see this Sawtooth Behavior where we start on a Monday, and usually what happens in any given week is there's a certain amount of publishing on Monday, it climbs on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, drops off a little bit on Friday, and then plunges down on Saturday and Sunday. And we see that across the past 6 months here. You see this Sawtooth type behavior.
So this every kind of gap here is are the weekends.
Exactly. So the valleys are the weekends, and the peaks are usually a Wednesday or Thursday. Every so often a holiday will throw that off. But by and large, I mean, we see that pretty consistently. But what we've seen and what we've been recommending to our clients, because the data shows very clearly, if you'll publish more content on a Saturday and Sunday, you've got so much less competition for attention that you can do well. And with these devices, the audience hasn't gone away on Saturday and Sunday. I think our habit is, people aren't watching TV on Saturday and Sunday as much as they are, especially in the summer months, as much as they are. But I guarantee you, people are carrying these devices on Saturday and Sunday. They are consuming media on Saturday or Sunday. And so there's a huge opportunity for media companies to just shift some of their publishing to Saturday and Sunday. And with what's happening with the election now, we're seeing huge amounts of coverage on Saturday and Sunday. And even Saturday Night Live is getting a lot of play in the election cycle, where you'll see people on the Sunday news shows, those types of things. There's plenty of attention to be had on weekends. And so it's really obvious, if you're a media company, one of the ways that you can do a lot better is to shift some of your content and some of your publishing on Saturday and Sunday.
So some of it could be accidental, and some of it could be because people are listening to people like us and looking at the data, which is Friday, great opportunity because, as you said, people are carrying these devices. They're constantly, while they're on the soccer sidelines, as some of us were this weekend, they're even looking at news. And if there are less stories, if there's less content, less people churning out content because they're not working on the weekends, you've still got as many eyeballs. So it stands to reason as a great opportunity. And a lot of these stories are being resliced, rehashed, regurgitated. So it seems like you get a lot of bang for your buck.
You do, really. I mean, in a very elemental sense, I mean, it's just content competing for attention, right? I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But there's a ever-increasing amount of content we see. I mean, that's one of the challenges of our world, is just there's more and more and more content. But of course, you and I still only have 24 hours in the day to consume the content. So in a world where there's an increasing amount of content competing for a finite amount of consumer attention, you need to adopt tactics that are going to allow you to compete more effectively. And so there's less competition on the weekends. So the smart publishers are starting to shift their publishing frequency to the weekends. And then the other thing I want to raise, you see the multicolors on our graphs here. The purple is the data-driven optimization. The pink is sort of the immediate. This is stuff that goes out right now because it's breaking. And then we still see a significant amount of scheduled content. That's the green. And so one of the things we're seeing the smart publishers start to do is shift from scheduled to the data-driven, because when you're competing, again, for that attention, trying to slot something in Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. because that sort of looks nice and even on a calendar, it's certainly understandable from a human perspective, but it's really not the way to get the best result. It may turn out, if there's an attention window on Thursday afternoon at 5:45, if that's the time when the audience is there, that's when you want your content to be out.
I guess my question to that, why would you guess?
Why would you guess? That's exactly right. Well, I'll tell you why people guess is because it looks better when you lay things out on a calendar or on a weekly thing. You want to have something filling each of your windows.
It looks like you're doing something on Wednesday when perhaps you really aren't doing anything. But there's little. That's almost just like busy work in essence, right?
Well,
if you're scheduling something on a Wednesday because you want to have a calendar to show your boss, look, we have 3 stories going out every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You may be better off. You just hit it.
Actually, so it's not busy work. If your boss is asking you a question saying, why didn't we do anything on Wednesday afternoon, and you give them the answer that, well, the attention window wasn't there, depending on the boss you have, I mean, they may say, that's great, okay, I'm glad you're getting the best optimization of our assets by putting them out. But there's a lot of people that it makes them feel uncomfortable to not have anything in a particular window. And by the way, it may not be an attention window of Wednesday afternoon. It may be Wednesday afternoon at 2. Most of our media clients are putting out 10, 20, 30, 50 posts a day. So
Right.
it's rare that you'd go an entire afternoon without having
anything.
things. But it's just that human psychology. I do the same thing. When I look at a schedule of things that have gone out, if I see a gap, a white space in the schedule, it makes me sort of uncomfortable. Your natural human instinct is to try to fill the gap, even if that's not the best way to use your asset, which in this case, the asset is the story, which is
Right.
going to generate the consumer attention.
Oh, that's great, brilliant. And of course, we schedule, not only schedule things for the weekends, but we also do the optimization where it doesn't just go out at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, it goes out when people
When the
happen to
audience
be-
is there and ready to consume. And sometimes you can anticipate that. You know, obviously, we're going to have a debate for the election on Wednesday night. You know there's going to be a huge audience watching that. So sometimes you know. The Super Bowl is another great example.
Right.
Something scheduled well in advance, you know the audience. A lot of other times, though, it just depends on what's going on in the world and what the audience chooses to engage with.
Fantastic. That seems one of the more sort of clear, easy, concise messages. And it almost seems like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
I guess is the point.
That's the point. You got it.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody.